Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Welcome back. We will now go on to discuss um, modern AI in a critical fashion. We're going to look both at its positive sides and also at the various risks involved. So people have been amazed by the various achievements of AI and the fantastic achievements indeed. AI has been shown to provide even better performance than human beings on certain narrow tasks. But at the same time, people are also uneasy about the lack of rigorous foundations for AI. Some experts have likened AI to alchemy. Some experts refer to modern AI as being a castle in the air that does not have any strong foundations. Furthermore, we shall see that modern AI poses certain risks. It can harm people if it is used carelessly. If we are not careful about the implications of our work, we may end up harming people. And there are issues related to bias and fairness and ethics. So we shall cover all of these issues in this part of the lecture. So we have mentioned about the AI optimism before as well. We saw how people were very excited about AI at the start of the work on AI and how recent progress on machine learning and deep learning, how that has rekindled this optimism. So as an example, Andrew Wench, he wrote this tweet in 2016. He said that pretty much anything that a normal human person can do in less than 1 second, we can now automate with AI. This is a very optimistic statement because, as pointed out by other experts, we are nowhere close to doing many of the things that human beings do instinctively. In fact, many of these instinctive, intuitive things, AI finds it very hard to do. Modern robots, they can do many impressive things, but at the same time, they have many shortcomings. Furthermore, these AI machine learning algorithms, especially based on modern ML and deep learning, they're also susceptible to security attacks. An adversary can cause them to fail, as people who work in the area of the security of machine learning have shown. This is indeed false and dangerous hubris. This is again the same thing that we are going ahead of ourselves and we are making an estimate of the prowess of AI, which is much larger than its current capabilities. So we will say that ML is not a panacea. It cannot cure all the ills. It is a useful tool. However, it is to be used in a careful fashion. So one cause of concern is that modern ML algorithms, they have a lack of rigor. It is that machine learning works, but we do not know why it works. It's like this cartoon. It says a person goes to another person sitting on a pile of data, and this person says, "This is your machine learning system." The reply is, "Yep." You pour the data into this big pile of linear algebra, then collect the answers on the other side. This is met with the question, what if the answers are wrong? The answer is just stare the pile until they start looking right. So there is this real concern that it's, machine learning is just a random tweaking of data. You get some answers, but we do not know if the answers are indeed correct. This is one reason we showed this image on the previous slide. And this is why people refer to machine learning as a castle in the sand, because when we talk of intelligence, typically we associate deeper understanding. We believe, just like human beings, these systems would be able to explain why they are making the decision in the manner they are. Their decisions should be scrutinizable. They should be based on some rigorous basis. However, especially the very accurate modern ML deep learning based algorithms, they work like a deep box. They work like a black box. They will just give you an answer, but they would not give you a lot of hint about how they got to the answer. Therefore, we say that these deep learning algorithms, they work like a black box and they do not offer interpretability of how they are computing their result. So some open questions related to ML AI. I think this was also discussed in the first week. These are issues related to bias that, okay, our ML model gives us good results seemingly, but can it also learn our biases? Because human beings are biased, societies are biased, people follow certain stereotypes. They may not be accurate or fair. So would our ML models learn our own biases, or would they have their own biases? Would these ML AI algorithms be interpretable? Can we understand the reasoning pursued by these ML models? Is privacy of data respected? Is the ML model protecting our privacy, or is it violating our privacy? Because lots of these, the success of these algorithms depend on data, but with data, you also have this possibility that private personal information can be leaked, and therefore we need to take steps to ensure that these algorithms are private, they are secure, the data does not get into the hands of the wrong people. Also, are these predictions trustworthy and reliable? Unfortunately, recent results have shown that these ML models, they can be fooled very easily. An image may look like it has a cat, but if it is contaminated with imperceptible noise, it would still look like a cat to us, but to a machine learning algorithm, an adversary can get the model to make the error that adversary desires. So the idea here is that these systems can be hacked. You can get bad results from these models. You can fool these models. By knowing the quirks of these models, you can construct an example which will get a wrong result from the ML model in a predictable fashion. So this is an open question. Can we trust the prediction of an ML model? Who is responsible if the ML model makes an incorrect prediction? What if this ML model makes a prediction that actually harms people? It harms certain groups of people. So we have to be very careful about this. So as an example of the problem of bias, we see here how machine learning can automatically, get this bias, this racial bias, and this is introduced into the system that most of the current deep learning based models, they are trained on data, and most of this training data, it is obtained from certain classes of people, maybe from people working in AI in United States of America, Europe. Maybe the training data only has white people, Caucasian people who have, who look slightly different from African people. So this was a case that was observed that an image classification system was built. It was working for things such as airplanes and cars, but when the image of a Black person was given to this image classification system, it outputted the label gorilla. It was because when the model was trained, it was not shown any example related to African people. It was only shown European people, and because of that, it thought that human beings or persons only have fair complexion. And whenever it was provided a Black person's image, it wrongly gave it the image of a gorilla, which was pointed out. And then Google actually, they just eliminated this label. They could not really solve this. They could not immediately get all Black people to be correctly identified. So what they said was, we will remove the label gorilla from our labels. Another example of the ML model failing to do its job is this facial recognition system. So this is an MIT student. While doing her research on face recognition systems, she discovered that if she comes in front of a camera, the camera is not able to pick out that there is a person in front of me. And this is the problem again, is it was trained only on the faces of white people, and it was not trained to pick out the faces of black people. And therefore, when she came in front of the camera without this white mask, the camera was unable to pick her face out. But when she came with a white mask, the camera could correctly know that a person is in front. And this very dramatically highlights that these algorithms, they suffer from a bias unless people actively work to remove this bias. So for this requires that the training data is appropriately created. However, the bias is not only limited to the training data. This is another example of bias. People working at ProPublica in the United States, they showed that the American system for predicting which criminal is going to get back into criminal behavior. So they saw that people from the Black community were given lesser scores and they were more likely to be kept in jails, even if the profiles of a white person and a Black person were the same. And when it was investigated, again, subtle issues related to data came to the fore, which highlights that whenever we make use of these automated methods, errors can be made, and those errors may be biased against certain classes of people. This is another example of bias against Black people. This is Professor Latanya Sweeney from Harvard University. When she was looking up her name on Google, she discovered that whenever a Black name, she was actually searching for her own name, she saw these ads on the side which went to those websites which were used to check upon people if they were having any criminal records. And this was shocking because she's an academic professor. She does not have any criminal record. And she discovered that just because when people interact with Google search engine, when searching for African names, they tend to search more for possible criminal records. And the search engine, it is trying to optimize the ads, and it is trying to create ads that are clicked upon. And therefore, even for innocent Black people, the ads shown seem to indicate that this person is a criminal. You would not have this for white people. So this is an example of the complex adaptive system that is biased against certain classes of people. We have introduced AI-based ad systems, but all of these issues are coming sometimes as an unexpected side effect. All of this is described by Cathy O'Neill in her book, Weapons of Math Destruction, because these ML models are based on maths and algorithms. She describes these algorithms as weapons of math destruction. She says how these algorithms can actually be weaponized, they can be used to harm people, and how often these algorithms result in unanticipated harms, particularly when they're used for critical decisions, such as who to hire, who to fire, who to give a bank loan to, who to give admission to, and so on. These questions, they have real implications on people's life. And if there is any bias, then, and if it is automated, the bias is going to increase because this thing is automated and it will be done again and again. And you would have a loop which tends to accentuate the inequalities that we have in the society. If we see another kind of bias, we will see that these AI models can also be biased against certain religions, not in a very explicit fashion. However, just because they are trained on news that belong to the Western mainstream media, and those mainstream media may not be very friendly with the Muslim population, it was observed that an AI algorithm that is used to generate text, if you give just a few words to this model, it will create a sentence, it will create a paragraph automatically. So this is the GPT-3 system, which is a system made by OpenAI. And a researcher discovered that whenever Muslim names or Muslim references are provided to this system, it completes it in a very biased fashion. So for example, two Muslims, one with an apparent bomb, tried to do this and this. Again, repeatedly, you would find references to bombs and terrorism and violent behavior come up, even though the prompt is just a Muslim walks into, two Muslim walk into, these are very benign statements. They are very simple statements. However, because it is trained on mainstream Western media, and the reference to Muslims there is invariably in a negative sense, these models, they pick up all of this bias in an automated fashion. The programmer did not actually create an Islamophobic or a Muslim phobic model. However, it happened in an automatic way. So this is the danger of using machine learning. We have to be careful. We must not assume that just because something is done by a machine learning method or an algorithmic model, it is neutral. People have shown how these models are not neutral. They do embody biases. These algorithms, they represent the choices made by the people who have designed this algorithm. This is very critical to understand, especially as more and more AI is used in our society. So this is an example of a language. This is my language, Urdu. In this language, and also in many other languages of the world, there are gender neutral pronouns. So example, wo here means it can say he or she. Like in Arabic, we have huwa and hiya, which means he and she. In Arabic, you also have different endings for female and male nouns, and also there's a difference in the verbs. However, for the gender neutral languages, it was seen that there is an embedded gender bias as well. For example, when we say wo ek engineer hai, wo ek nurse hai, it means that person is an engineer, that person is a nurse. However, when it is translated into English, it automatically is translated into he is an engineer and she is a nurse, which tends to indicate a preference just because, in data, probabilistically, we see that more engineers are male and more nurses are female. The translation was made in this sense, and people were alarmed by this, especially in more serious cases, because when, for example, we say that person is a chief executive, again, invariably, the translation is to a male pronoun. So this is an example of gender bias. This is a research paper on this topic. There is also the question of interpretability. Okay, if your machine learning makes a prediction, but all of these math-based models, all of these scientific models, they have this potential of making an error. So as an example, you go to a clinic, you get a test done, you can have a false positive, you can have a false negative. What are the risks involved with these false positives and false negatives when machine learning is used? As an example, in the movie Minority Report, the cop tackles and handcuffs a person who has not committed a crime yet, proclaiming stuff like, by the mandate of this in this district, I'm placing you under arrest for the future murder of Sarah Marks and Donald Dubin, which seems to indicate that you are predicting some person would commit a crime and you are punishing that person in advance. Furthermore, using AI, machine learning, and data-driven methods for crime analytics or policing would run the danger that you are more strict against people who have been stereotyped previously. So in all kinds of communities, you have certain downtrodden people. Like in America, you have the Africans. In some parts of the Europe, you have North Africans. And those people are typically assumed to be more criminal because they are economically less influential. And sometimes it is true that they, in terms of statistics, they are more involved in crime, but those involvement in crime is mainly because of the economic reality. However, if you automate the arrests of people based on predicted criminality, then the question arises that what about the false positives? What about the potential of making an error? So you are going to affect the life of a person just on the basis of a guess, which is ethically questionable. And in the book, Weapons of Mass Destruction, the author actually goes on to show how there are ethical choices in every single algorithm we build. Because in algorithms, we have objective functions. What is it that we are trying to optimize? Every time you put a number to something and you try to say that I'm measuring this, but I'm measuring it in terms of this, then you are making a choice. You are describing that this is how I'm going to measure it. However, it may not be universally agreed upon. And so there are ethical choices. Even when we're dealing with numbers and quantitative things, there are still qualitative issues, ethical issues, which are important and which affect how the decision is made. So the problem of privacy is, the modern entire system of the internet is based on surveillance capitalism. You are capturing lots of data on people, and making good products requires you to intrude into the homes of people and to intrude everywhere they go, to buy their data even without their permission, because the model of the internet is it runs on ads. So seemingly the internet services are free. However, it is you are selling your privacy, your data, to get all of these free services. So this is a quote from a famous data scientist. He says that the best minds of my generation are thinking about how to make people click ads, and this sucks. The idea is that the entire alpha and omega of data science these days is that how can we get people to click on ads? And because people want to make profits, and because of this, they are capturing more and more data. They are making predictions on what people would like, what would they buy. And so even though AI can be used for many good things, this is what it is practically being used for. As an example, offering such services require you to monitor everything related to people, and obviously this opens up concerns about the violation of privacy of people. This issue is highlighted in this very excellent book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, in which the author Shoshana Zuboff describes the various problems related to surveillance capitalism. She calls it a rogue mutation of capitalism. This is worse than even normal capitalism. And this system is leading to issues such as fake news, elections are being manipulated, and people, their choices is being manipulated. People are given all sorts of notifications, their behavior is being changed and monitored. So there are various issues related to human agency, human morality, and so on. So I'm coming to the end of my lecture. people have been thinking about how to deal with the various ethical issues raised by AI. And in response, people have come up with various AI ethics guidelines. And they have come up essentially with a few principles. Many of these principles are in sync with the principles people have figured, for example, for biomedicine. These would be your bioethic principles such as beneficence, non-maleficence, autonomy, and justice. You want to benefit people using your technology. You don't want to harm people. You want to respect the autonomy of people and also be just. In addition, people have mentioned that for AI, there is a need for these models to be explicable. That is, they must be explainable and interpretable. However, there is also this realization that principles alone cannot guarantee ethical AI because the corporations and the companies are very powerful, and we don't have an international system that can be used to enforce ethics or ethical behavior, or we don't have any appropriate laws that can control the rogue use of AI. We have not even talked about the use of AI for building killer drones, automated weapons, and so on. There are many negative uses of AI, including creating fake images, creating fake movies, and so on. So there is this realization that we require regulation, law, and public policy, and not only just ethics. We must translate it into practice. We need more political philosophy. We need to think about what kind of a society we want to live in. And in addition to all of that, we need algorithmic solutions. This is what engineers do. But this alone will not solve the problem. We need ethical oversight. We need enforcement of ethical principles. We need to have stable institutions. And this is the ecosystem we're looking at, which is necessary to build a more pro-social future. So with this, I come to the end of the lecture. I hope I have succeeded in giving you some understanding of how AI works, what are its various methods, what are its various applications, what are the how did the technology evolve in time, how is modern AI different from traditional AI, and what are the critical issues that we face, especially in reference to the ethics of AI. I am thankful to all of you for your attention, and to Professor Muhammad Ghali for giving me this opportunity to speak to the class. I look forward to your feedback, and I'm happy to discuss this again in the future with the class. With this, I will conclude the lecture. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.